The knock on Daniel Carter's door came just after sunset, 3 firm taps that echoed through the small, quiet house. Daniel wiped his hands on a kitchen towel and glanced toward the living room where his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, was finishing her homework at the table. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, a sleek black car idled at the curb. Standing on his porch was a woman in a tailored navy suit, confident yet strangely nervous. Her presence felt out of place in the modest neighborhood. "Mr. Daniel Carter?" she asked. Daniel nodded cautiously. "My name is Victoria Hale," she said, extending her hand. "I'm the CEO of Hale Industries. I hope I'm not intruding, but I've been searching for you for a long time." Daniel blinked in confusion. CEOs didn't knock on doors like this, especially not his. "Are you sure you've got the right house?" he asked. Victoria gave a small, thoughtful smile. "Yes. 20 years ago, on a rainy night outside St. Mary's Hospital, you helped a stranger who had nothing." Daniel's mind flickered with a distant memory, an exhausted young woman sitting on a curb, scared and alone. He had simply offered her his umbrella, a ride to the hospital, and a few kind words before leaving quietly. It had never seemed like a big moment. But Victoria's eyes shimmered with emotion. "That stranger," she said softly, "was me." Daniel felt the past rushing back all at once. Then she asked the question that made his heart stop. "Mr. Carter, do you remember what you told me that night?" Daniel stood frozen in the doorway, trying to pull the memory from 20 years ago out of the fog of time. "What I told you," he repeated quietly. Victoria nodded, her expression serious but warm. "You said something that night that changed the course of my life." Daniel scratched his head, embarrassed. "I honestly don't remember. It was just a rainy night. You looked like you needed help, that's all." Victoria took a slow breath, glancing briefly at the small house behind him. The walls were simple, the furniture old but neat. Lily peeked curiously from the dining table. "You told me," Victoria said softly. "The world can be cruel sometimes, but kindness always finds its way back." Daniel stared at her, surprised that such simple words had stayed with her all these years. "At the time," Victoria continued, "I had nothing. No family, no money, and I was terrified about the future. I was about to give up on everything." Her voice trembled slightly. "But those words, they stayed with me." She gestured toward the black car and the driver waiting patiently. "I built my company from nothing. Every time things got difficult, I remembered that moment. I promised myself that if I ever succeeded, I would find the man who reminded me that kindness still existed." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He had spent the last 8 years raising Lily alone after his wife passed away, working long hours just to keep their small life together. "I didn't do anything special," he said quietly. Victoria smiled gently. "That's exactly the point." She then reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. "And there's something else," she said. "Something connected to that night, something you deserve to know." He expected, like a door to the past had suddenly opened. "What is it?" he asked carefully. Victoria hesitated for a moment before handing it to him. "It's something I've carried for 20 years. Daniel slowly opened the envelope. Inside was an old, slightly faded photograph. His eyes widened the moment he saw it. It was him. A younger version of himself standing outside St. Mary's Hospital under a streetlight, holding an umbrella over a frightened young woman sitting on the curb. I didn't even know this picture existed," Daniel said, stunned. Victoria smiled softly. "A security guard took it that night. He thought it was a rare moment of kindness and gave it to me later. I kept it as a reminder." Daniel studied the photo again, remembering how cold the rain had been that night. He had just finished a long shift and was heading home when he saw her alone and crying. "I was scared," Victoria admitted quietly. "I was 19. Pregnant. Completely alone. I didn't know what I was going to do." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "But your kindness gave me strength," she continued. "And that night changed everything." From the living room, Lily slowly walked closer, curious about the conversation. Victoria noticed her and smiled warmly. "You must be Lily." Daniel nodded proudly. "My daughter." Victoria's expression softened as she looked at the little girl. Then she turned back to Daniel, her voice suddenly more serious. "There's another reason I came tonight," she said. Daniel felt a strange tension build in the air. Victoria took a steady breath. "Because what happened that night is connected to Lily in a way you may not realize." Daniel felt his heart skip. "Connected to Lily?" he repeated, his voice tight with confusion. Lily looked up at her father, sensing the sudden seriousness in the room. Victoria quickly softened her tone. "Don't worry, Daniel. I'm not here to take anything away from you." Daniel's shoulders relaxed slightly, but the tension remained. Victoria stepped a little closer and looked around the small but warm home. Family drawings covered the refrigerator. A worn sofa sat by the window. It was clear this house was full of love, even if life hadn't been easy. "When I met you that night," Victoria continued, "I was standing outside the hospital because I was terrified to go inside alone. I had no one. No support. I felt like my life was falling apart." Daniel listened quietly. "But after you helped me," she said, "I went inside. I faced everything. And I made a decision that changed my life forever." Lily gently held her father's arm, curious but silent. Victoria looked at her kindly before turning back to Daniel. "The baby I was carrying that night," she paused, her voice thick with emotion, "was placed for adoption shortly after birth." Daniel frowned slightly, unsure where the story was going. "For many years," Victoria continued, "I didn't know where that child went. But a few months ago, through a private investigator and adoption records, I finally found the answer." Daniel's breath grew slower. Victoria's eyes moved again toward Lily. "And when I saw her name, and who her father was, I realized something unbelievable." Daniel felt the ground beneath him shift. Victoria spoke gently, but clearly. "Daniel, the child I gave up 20 years ago," she paused, "is Lily." The room fell completely silent. Daniel felt as if the world had stopped moving. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what Victoria had just said. That can't be right," he whispered. Victoria nodded slowly, understanding his shock. "I know how unbelievable it sounds. I thought the same thing when I first saw the records." Lily looked between them, confused. "Dad, what's happening?" Daniel knelt beside his daughter, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're just talking." Victoria spoke gently, careful with every word. "Daniel, when my daughter was born, I was young and terrified. I wanted her to have a better life than the one I could give at that time. So I made the hardest decision of my life." Daniel's eyes filled with emotion as memories resurfaced, holding baby Lily for the first time, promising he would always protect her. "I adopted Lily 8 years ago after my wife passed away," he said quietly. "She saved me just as much as I saved her." Victoria smiled softly through tears. "That's why I came here," she said. "Not to take her away. Never that. You are her father in every way that matters." Lily squeezed Daniel's hand tightly. Victoria continued, her voice warm and sincere. "I only wanted to meet the man who unknowingly changed both our lives that rainy night, and to see the incredible father he became." Daniel looked at Lily, then back at Victoria. After a long moment, he said something simple but powerful. "Well, I guess kindness really does find its way back." Victoria nodded with a gentle smile. And in that small house, 3 lives connected by one act of kindness finally came full circle.